She built a brand on lies. I buried it with a smile.
The flight manifest shouldn't have mattered. Just another piece of paper in my greasy hands after 12 hours of working on a King Air 350. But there it was, Rachel's name, printed in black ink next to a destination that made my stomach drop. Caribbean, passenger count 2. She'd told me Bali, a wellness retreat for her brand. 3 weeks of yoga and meditation content for her 800,000 Instagram followers. I'd even driven her to buy new activewear 2 days ago, watched her model poses in the dressing room mirror while talking about finding her authentic self in Indonesia. The pilot, Jenkins, handed me the customs form with a tired smile. Just need you to verify the passenger list for tomorrow's departure, Gray. Standard procedure. I stared at the paper, my hands leaving oil stains on the edges. Rachel Hale, seat 2A. And next to her, Felix Durand, seat 2B. Felix damn Durand. Everything looked good? Jenkins asked, checking his watch. The private terminal was nearly empty at this hour, just the hum of overhead lights and the distant sound of a maintenance crew working on a citation. Yeah, I managed. Looks fine, but it wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. I'd heard that name before, Felix Durand. Rachel had mentioned him exactly once, 3 months ago after her college reunion in Charlotte. Some guy who'd started a blockchain wellness company, she'd said. They'd barely talked, she'd said. Just old friends catching up, she'd said. I folded the manifest and slipped it into my coveralls. My shift ended in 20 minutes, but I couldn't move. Couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. 2 passengers, Caribbean, not Bali. Rachel had lied to me. Not just a small lie, not just a change of plans. A deliberate, calculated lie that involved fake social media posts, fake flight bookings, and apparently fake everything else about our marriage. I walked to the employee break room and sat on the plastic chair that had molded to my body over 5 years of 12-hour shifts. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Just posted the cutest throwback pic from last year's Bali trip. Getting so excited for tomorrow. Love you, babe. I opened Instagram. There she was, my wife of 6 years, sitting in a yoga pose on a beach that definitely wasn't in the Carolinas. The location tag read, Ubud, Bali, posted 47 minutes ago. Except she was currently at home, 23 miles from here, supposedly packing for her retreat. I screenshotted the post, then opened the phone's metadata reader I'd downloaded months ago when I got curious about photo locations. Every digital file leaves breadcrumbs. Most people don't know that. The photo was taken last March in Bali, but it had been edited and reposted from our home's IP address at 6:43 p.m. today. She was faking her location. She was going somewhere else entirely, with someone else entirely. My hands shook as I Googled Felix Durand. The first result made me want to throw my phone across the room. A LinkedIn profile showing a guy who looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne advertisement. Perfectly styled hair, expensive suit, the kind of smile that probably worked on investors and apparently worked on my wife. CEO of Vital Chain Wellness Network, blockchain-based wellness solutions connecting mindful travelers with authentic retreat experiences, based in Miami. His company's website looked impressive until you dug deeper. Lots of buzzwords, lots of promises, but no actual retreats listed. No real testimonials, no physical addresses beyond a Miami P.O. box. Felix Durand wasn't just some successful entrepreneur. He was running a scam, and somehow my wife had gotten tangled up in it. Or maybe she hadn't gotten tangled up. Maybe she was helping him. I scrolled through more search results. Found a local news article from 2 weeks ago. Local influencer partners with wellness startup for exclusive Caribbean project. The article featured a photo of Rachel and Felix standing in front of what looked like a resort under construction. She was wearing the red dress she'd bought for our anniversary dinner. The dinner she'd canceled because of a last-minute brand emergency. Rachel Hale, lifestyle and wellness influencer with over 800,000 followers, announced her partnership with Vital Chain Wellness Network to launch an exclusive retreat experience in Barbados. This is about creating authentic wellness experiences for people who are ready to transform their lives, Hale said. The retreat, scheduled to open next month, will feature personalized wellness programs and blockchain-verified organic certifications. I read the article 3 times. Each time, my anger crystallized into something colder, more focused. Rachel wasn't just cheating on me. She was using our joint accounts, our shared resources, our marriage as collateral for whatever scheme Felix was running, and she was planning to leave me holding the bag when it all fell apart. But I knew something they didn't know. I knew how to disappear things, how to track things, how to make systems fail in ways that looked like accidents. 15 years of aircraft maintenance teaches you about systems, how they work, how they break, how to fix them. But more importantly, it teaches you about precision, about planning, about the difference between the right tool and the wrong tool for every job. I had 43 minutes before Rachel expected me home, enough time to start planning. I opened my laptop and logged into our joint bank accounts. 3 accounts, total balance, $127,000. Most of it from Rachel's influencer income over the past 2 years, but legally half mine, since we'd kept everything joint after the marriage. I took screenshots of everything, every transaction, every balance, every automatic payment. Then I started looking for patterns. There, a wire transfer from last week, $15,000 to something called Paradise Holdings LLC. The same day Rachel had told me she was investing in growth opportunities for her brand. Another transfer, $8,000 to Caribbean Development Group. 2 days ago, she wasn't just planning to leave me. She was already moving our money to fund whatever she and Felix were building. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Rachel. Can't wait to disconnect from everything tomorrow. No phones, no social media, just pure wellness. You understand, right? Sometimes we need space to grow. Space to grow. Right. I typed back, of course. Take all the time you need. Then I started making my own plans. The first step was simple. I needed to get on that plane. I got home at 11:47 p.m. to find Rachel in full performance mode. She'd spread yoga mats and meditation cushions across our living room, her phone propped on a stack of books to film herself in various preparing for my retreat poses. Hey, babe, she called without looking up, adjusting her position into something that looked painful. Just finishing up some content for tomorrow. The algorithm loves behind-the-scenes preparation stuff. I stood in the doorway, watching my wife perform authenticity for strangers on the internet. She was wearing new athletic wear, the expensive kind that cost more than I made in a week. Her hair was perfectly tousled in that way that took an hour to achieve. Looks like you're really committed to this Bali experience, I said. She glanced up, and for just a second, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or calculation. You know how important this is for my brand, Gray. The wellness space is so competitive right now. I need to stay ahead of the trends. I nodded and walked to the kitchen, opened a beer, leaned against the counter where I could watch her work. She was good at this. Natural performer, natural liar. When's your car coming tomorrow? I asked. Around 9. I want to get to the airport early, do some meditation before the flight. Really center myself before disconnecting from everything. I could drive you. She stopped mid-pose, looked at me with that expression she got when I suggested something that interfered with her plans. Patient but annoyed, like I was a child who didn't understand adult things. That's sweet, but I already arranged everything. Plus, you know how emotional I get at airports. Better if I just go alone and focus on the transition. Emotional at airports. Right. The same woman who'd posted 17 Instagram stories during our honeymoon flight to Hawaii, making friends with the flight attendants and asking strangers to take pictures of us. Makes sense, I said. I'll probably be at the shop anyway. Jenkins has me checking over the King Air that came in last week. This wasn't entirely a lie. I would be at the shop, just not in the way she thought. Rachel finished her filming session and started packing. I watched from the couch, noting everything she put in her luggage. Expensive activewear, her professional ring light, 3 different cameras, her laptop, and, most interesting, a folder of papers she thought I couldn't see. While she was in the bathroom, I flipped through the folder. Investment agreements, partnership contracts, and corporation papers for something called Mindful Escapes LLC. All with her signature, all dated within the last month. She was planning to start a business. Without me. With Felix. I photographed every page with my phone, then put the folder back exactly where I'd found it. I think I'm all set, Rachel announced, emerging from the bathroom with her toiletry bag. God, I can't wait to just breathe again. Really breathe, you know? Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating in our routine. Our routine. As if my working 12-hour days to keep us afloat while she built her brand was somehow oppressive to her. I get it, I said. Everyone needs to find themselves. She kissed me on the forehead, and I wondered if she could feel my skin crawling. You're the best, Gray. I know this is hard for you, me being gone for 3 weeks, but I promise I'll come back refreshed and ready to focus on us. Us. The word tasted like poison in my mouth. After she went to bed, I sat in my garage workshop and made my own preparations. I had 8 hours before her car arrived, which gave me plenty of time to set everything up. First, I needed to track her movements. I'd installed location sharing on both our phones months ago after she'd gotten lost hiking and scared me half to passing. She'd forgotten about it, but I hadn't. I could see exactly where she went, when she got there, and how long she stayed. But that wasn't enough. I needed more control. I found the Apple AirTag I'd bought last Christmas but never used. Small, undetectable, with a battery life of over a year. I carefully opened the seam of her makeup bag and tucked it inside the lining, then sewed it back up with thread that matched the original stitching. She'd never know it was there. Next, I logged into our shared iCloud account and enabled location services on her iPad. Rachel used it for editing photos and managing her social media accounts. If she took it on the trip, which she would because she never went anywhere without being able to post, I'd be able to track its location independently of her phone. Then I started working on the harder part. Rachel had built her influencer business using our shared email account for all her brand partnerships. Every contract, every payment, every communication went through an address that I had full access to. She'd never changed it because she trusted me, and because it was easier for tax purposes to keep everything consolidated. I spent 3 hours going through her correspondence, building a complete picture of her business relationships. 17 active brand partnerships with contracts worth a combined $240,000 over the next 6 months, all dependent on her maintaining her image as an authentic wellness expert. All dependent on her being exactly where she said she was, when she said she was there. I found the contact information for her 3 biggest sponsors: a luxury activewear company, an organic supplement brand, and a meditation app that had featured her in their national advertising campaign. Each contract had specific clauses about brand integrity, truthfulness in advertising, and ethical behavior. Break any of those clauses, and they could not only cancel the contract but demand repayment of any advance fees. Rachel had received $45,000 in advance payments from these companies in the last 2 months, money that was sitting in our joint account, money that she was planning to steal. I created a new email address and drafted 3 separate messages to her sponsors. I didn't send them yet, but I had them ready. All I needed was proof that she was lying about her location, and I could destroy her business relationships with a single click. But destroying her business wasn't enough. I wanted her to understand what she'd done. I wanted her to feel the same betrayal, the same humiliation, the same loss of control that she'd put me through. At 4 a.m., I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to follow her to Barbados. I called Jenkins and told him I needed a personal day, family emergency. He didn't ask questions. One of the benefits of being a reliable employee for 5 years. Then I booked a standby seat on the same charter flight Rachel thought would take her and Felix to their new life. I packed light. 1 duffel bag with clothes for 3 days, my laptop, a portable battery pack, and something Rachel didn't know I owned. A professional-grade recording device small enough to fit in a shirt pocket. If she was planning to scam people out of their money, if she was planning to destroy our marriage for some fantasy life with a con artist, then she was going to do it on camera, and I was going to make sure the whole world got to watch. I watched from the employee break room window as Rachel's rideshare pulled up to the private terminal at 9:15 a.m. She stepped out wearing designer athleisure and oversized sunglasses, every inch the successful influencer heading to an exclusive retreat. Felix was already waiting inside. Through the glass, I could see him pacing near the departure lounge, checking his phone every few seconds. He looked nervous. Good. They embraced when Rachel walked in. And even from 50 yards away, I could see this wasn't a casual greeting between old college friends. Felix's hands lingered on her waist. Rachel leaned into him in a way she hadn't leaned into me in months. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. Something more useful than that. Focus. Jenkins found me 20 minutes later, clipboard in hand and a confused expression on his face. Gray? Thought you called in sick today. Family emergency got resolved, I said. Figured I might as well pick up some overtime. What have you got? He handed me a work order. King Air 350, pre-flight inspection. Heading to Barbados in about an hour. Paying customers want everything perfect. I looked at the aircraft tail number. Same plane from yesterday's manifest. Same plane that would carry my wife and her boyfriend to their tropical paradise. I'll take good care of it, I said. The next 40 minutes were a masterclass in controlled precision. I performed the most thorough pre-flight inspection of my career, checking every system, every connection, every possible safety concern. But I also used my legitimate access to the aircraft for less legitimate purposes. I installed a small recording device in the cabin's overhead storage compartment. Nothing illegal, the plane belonged to the charter company, and as their maintenance technician, I had every right to monitor aircraft systems for safety purposes. The fact that this particular monitoring device happened to record audio was just a coincidence. I also used my maintenance access to register myself as a technical observer on the flight manifest. Sometimes technicians flew along on charter flights to monitor aircraft performance, especially on longer routes. It wasn't unusual, and Jenkins approved it without question when I told him I wanted to gather data on the King Air's performance at cruise altitude. By the time passengers started boarding, I was already buckled into the rear jump seat, wearing a maintenance technician uniform and carrying a clipboard that made me invisible. Rachel walked past me without a glance. Why would she look twice at the maintenance crew? Felix followed her, and up close, I could see why she'd been attracted to him. He had the kind of polished confidence that comes from money and success, or at least the appearance of both. Expensive watch, perfect teeth, the kind of tan that came from tropical vacations rather than working outdoors. He was everything I wasn't, and I hated him for it. But I also recognized something familiar in the way he carried himself. The same nervous energy I'd seen in aircraft owners who were flying on borrowed money, hoping their next deal would come through before the payments came due. Felix Duran was running scared, and he was using my wife to buy himself time. The flight to Barbados took 4 hours. I spent most of it listening through noise-canceling headphones to the conversation Rachel and Felix thought was private. The recording device worked perfectly. I still can't believe we're actually doing this, Rachel said about an hour into the flight. 6 months ago, I was just another wellness influencer posting yoga videos for housewives. Now we're about to launch something that could change everything. The timing is perfect, Felix replied. The wellness tourism market is exploding. Blockchain verification of organic experiences is exactly what high net worth individuals want. Authenticity they can trust. And the investors you lined up? 3 confirmed for next week's presentation. 2 more expressing serious interest once they see the location, the facilities, your social media reach. We'll have enough funding to expand to 5 locations within 2 years. Rachel laughed, and the sound made my stomach turn. Gray would never understand something like this. He thinks small, you know, steady job, steady paycheck, steady life. No vision. Some people are content being maintenance workers, Felix said. Others are meant to build empires. I closed my eyes and focused on breathing. 4 hours to Barbados. Plenty of time to decide exactly how I was going to destroy both of them. When we landed, I waited until all passengers had deplaned before leaving the aircraft. Rachel and Felix were already in a taxi by the time I collected my bag and walked through the private terminal, but I knew where they were going. I'd spent the flight researching Paradise Holdings, LLC, and Caribbean Development Group, the companies that had received Rachel's wire transfers. Both were registered to the same address, a half-finished resort on the island's west coast. A place called Serenity Bay Wellness Retreat, which existed primarily in marketing materials and architectural renderings. I rented a car using a credit card Rachel didn't know about and drove to the resort. The location was beautiful. White sand beaches, crystal clear water, the kind of tropical paradise that looked perfect in Instagram photos. The resort itself was less impressive. Half the buildings were still under construction. The luxury accommodations were basic hotel rooms with expensive furniture that looked like it had been staged for photos rather than actual guests. But it was perfect for what Felix and Rachel were planning. I checked into a hotel 5 miles away, then spent the evening setting up surveillance. Not illegal surveillance, I was careful about that. But public observation of public spaces, documenting what appeared to be a business operation using my wife's money and reputation. By midnight, I had everything I needed to begin the second phase of my plan. Rachel thought she was building a new life. Instead, she was about to discover what it felt like when the life you'd carefully constructed collapsed around you. And the beautiful part was, she was going to do most of the work herself. I woke up at sunrise and drove back to Serenity Bay. Rachel and Felix were already awake, setting up what looked like a professional photo shoot on the beach. Through my telephoto lens, I watched Rachel arrange herself in various yoga poses, while Felix directed the shots. They had professional lighting equipment, a drone for aerial footage, and enough camera gear to outfit a small film crew. This wasn't a vacation. This was a content production operation designed to sell people on a wellness retreat that didn't actually exist. I spent 2 hours documenting everything. Photos of the staged scenes, videos of the fake investor presentations Felix practiced in the resort's empty conference room, recordings of conversations where they discussed timelines for taking deposits from potential guests. The resort was beautiful in photos, but up close, it was clear that most of the facilities were incomplete. The spa existed only as a single massage table in an unfurnished room. The gourmet wellness cuisine was being prepared in a construction trailer by a single cook who looked confused about what he was supposed to be making. But the photos Rachel posted on Instagram that morning told a different story. Absolutely overwhelmed by the energy and authenticity of this incredible wellness sanctuary, the universe really does provide when you're aligned with your purpose. So grateful to be partnering with visionary leaders who understand that true wellness is about more than just individual transformation. It's about creating spaces where others can discover their own path to enlightenment. The post got over 15,000 likes within 3 hours. Comments from her followers range from jealous to inspiring, to people asking how they could book their own retreat experience. Felix was taking screenshots of every comment, building a database of potential customers who were already showing interest in something that didn't exist. That's when I realized this wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just my wife leaving me for another man. This was a criminal conspiracy to defraud people out of their money, using Rachel's reputation and our joint assets as startup capital. And I was going to stop it. I drove back to my hotel and opened my laptop. First, I logged into Rachel's social media accounts. She'd never changed the passwords from the ones we'd set up together 3 years ago, because she trusted me to help manage her business during busy periods. That trust was about to cost her everything. I started with her Instagram account. I didn't delete anything or post anything obviously malicious. Instead, I made subtle changes to her recent content. I removed location tags from photos, changed captions to remove references to Bali, and updated her bio to remove mentions of her authentic wellness journey. Then I accessed the back end of her website and scheduled a series of posts that would go live over the next week. Posts that would reveal the truth about her location, her business partnerships, and her relationship status. But the social media sabotage was just the beginning. I logged into our joint bank accounts and started documenting every transaction Rachel had made in the past 3 months. Wire transfers to Felix's companies, payments for travel and accommodations, investments in business equipment, and marketing materials. Then I did something that would have been illegal if I weren't legally married to Rachel and co-owner of all our joint assets. I moved everything. Every dollar from our joint savings, checking, and investment accounts went into a new account that only I could access. Legally, it was my money as much as hers. Morally, it was justice. But I wasn't done. I created a detailed spreadsheet showing every dollar Rachel had spent on her scheme with Felix, cross-referenced with her social media posts claiming to be in Bali for a wellness retreat. The pattern of deception was clear and well documented. Then I drafted emails to each of her major sponsors. Subject: Urgent Brand Integrity Concern. Rachel Hale. To whom it may concern, I am writing to inform you of a serious discrepancy in Rachel Hale's recent social media content that may violate the ethical standards outlined in her partnership agreement with your company. Despite posting content claiming to be participating in a wellness retreat in Bali, Indonesia, Ms. Hale is actually in Barbados working on an undisclosed business venture with an unvetted partner. This misrepresentation of her location and activities appears to be part of a coordinated effort to mislead her audience about the authenticity of her wellness experience. Attached, you will find documentation including flight records, hotel bookings, and photographic evidence of her actual location and activities. I believe this information is relevant to your assessment of whether Ms. Hale is meeting the standards of authenticity and transparency required by her contract with your company. Please let me know if you need any additional information. I didn't send the emails yet. I wanted to time everything perfectly. Instead, I got back in my car and drove to the resort. It was time for the most dangerous part of my plan. I needed to get close enough to record Rachel and Felix's actual business conversations. The kind of conversations that would prove they were actively defrauding potential customers. The resort had a restaurant that was open to the public. I sat at a corner table with a clear view of the conference room where Felix was holding his investor presentations and ordered lunch. The first presentation started at 2 p.m. Three people in expensive vacation clothes, clearly wealthy tourists who'd been invited to learn about exclusive investment opportunities in Caribbean wellness tourism. I activated the recording app on my phone and aimed it toward the conference room. Felix's presentation was masterful. He had architectural renderings of fully completed facilities, testimonials from satisfied customers who probably didn't exist, and financial projections that promised 200% returns within 18 months. Rachel played her part perfectly, describing her social media reach and the unprecedented demand from her followers for authentic wellness experiences. The investors asked smart questions. Where were the completed facilities? What regulatory approvals had been obtained? Who else was backing the project? Felix had answers for everything. The completed facilities were at their flagship location in Costa Rica. Regulatory approval was being fast-tracked through their government connections. Other investors included high net worth individuals who prefer to remain private for tax purposes. All lies. Smooth, professional, convincing lies that sounded exactly like the kind of investment opportunity that wealthy people paid thousands of dollars to access. By the end of the presentation, two of the three investors had agreed to wire deposits totaling $150,000. I had recorded everything. That evening, I sat in my hotel room and edited the audio recordings into a clear, damning compilation of fraud in action. Felix and Rachel discussing fake testimonials, planned misrepresentations, and strategies for collecting deposits before completing construction. Then I researched the investors who'd attended the presentation. All three were traceable through social media, with public profiles and business connections. I drafted personal emails to each of them, attaching the audio recordings and warning them about the fraudulent scheme they'd been invited to invest in. But I still didn't send anything. Tomorrow was Rachel's birthday, and I had plans for a very special surprise. Rachel's birthday dawned perfect and tropical, the kind of morning that made fraudulent wellness retreats look like paradise in Instagram photos. I watched from the hotel restaurant as she and Felix set up their morning content creation session on the beach. Rachel was wearing a flowing white dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary, positioned against the sunrise in a pose that screamed, "Enlightened wellness guru discovers her authentic self." The irony was delicious. While Rachel performed serenity for her social media audience, I was putting the finishing touches on her professional destruction. I'd spent the night creating a comprehensive dossier on Felix Durand and his business operations. What I found confirmed my suspicions and gave me everything I needed to destroy both of them permanently. Felix had a history, 3 previous wellness-related businesses that had collapsed amid fraud allegations. A pattern of targeting successful women with social media followings, convincing them to invest their money and reputations in his schemes, then disappearing when things fell apart. Rachel wasn't his first sufferer. She was just the most successful one he'd targeted so far. But she was also a willing participant. The emails I'd recovered from her laptop showed she knew exactly what they were doing. She'd helped design the fake testimonials, suggested strategies for avoiding regulatory scrutiny, and proposed targeting specific demographics of potential sufferers. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively participating in organized fraud. At 10 a.m., Rachel posted her birthday message to social media. 32 years around the sun, and I've never felt more aligned with my purpose. Celebrating my birthday in this sacred space, surrounded by the kind of natural beauty that reminds us what really matters. So grateful for the journey that brought me here, and excited for the path ahead. The universe has been preparing me for something special, and I can feel it coming together in ways I never imagined possible. The post included a video of her practicing yoga on the beach, with Felix's voice barely audible in the background, coaching her through poses and reminding her to really feel the spiritual connection. 15,000 likes within 2 hours. Hundreds of comments from followers wishing her happy birthday and expressing admiration for her authentic journey and inspiring dedication to wellness. People trusted her. They believed in her. They sent her money, bought products she recommended, planned their own lives around the lifestyle she portrayed, and she was lying to all of them. That's when I decided it was time to send the emails. I started with her sponsors. 3 carefully crafted messages that included photographic evidence of her real location, financial records showing her business relationship with Felix, and audio recordings of their investor presentations. Within 30 minutes, all 3 companies had responded. The first response came from her biggest sponsor, an activewear company that had paid Rachel $25,000 for a 6-month partnership. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We take brand integrity very seriously and are immediately suspending our partnership with Ms. Hale pending a full investigation. We will also be seeking recovery of advance payments made under our agreement." The second company was more direct. "Partnership terminated immediately. Legal action will follow." The third response arrived while I was reading the second. "We have forwarded your information to our legal team and will be pursuing all available remedies for breach of contract and misrepresentation." Rachel's phone started buzzing around 11:30 a.m. I watched through my telephoto lens as she checked her messages, saw her expression change from birthday happiness to confusion to rising panic. She showed Felix her phone. Even from a distance, I could see him going pale. But I wasn't done. I sent the investor warning emails next. 3 messages to the wealthy tourists who'd attended yesterday's presentation, complete with audio recordings of Felix and Rachel discussing their fraudulent scheme. Then I sent a comprehensive report to the Barbados Tourism Authority, documenting the unlicensed business operations at Serenity Bay and the fraudulent representations being made to potential investors. Finally, I sent an anonymous tip to the Royal Barbados Police Force, reporting suspected fraud and providing all the evidence I'd collected over the past 2 days. By noon, Rachel and Felix were in full crisis mode. I watched them pack frantically, loading equipment and documents into Felix's rental car with the desperate efficiency of people who knew their world was collapsing. They thought they could run. They were wrong. While they'd been focused on content creation and investor presentations, I'd been busy with more practical preparations. I'd contacted the charter flight company and reported a maintenance concern with the aircraft that had brought us to Barbados. As the mechanic who'd performed the pre-flight inspection, I had the authority to ground the aircraft pending a more thorough investigation. The investigation would probably take 3 to 5 days, during which the plane wouldn't be available for return flights. Felix and Rachel were stranded in Barbados until they could arrange alternative transportation. And alternative transportation required valid documentation, clean legal records, and money that they no longer had access to. Speaking of money, it was time for the final phase of my plan. I logged into the new bank account where I'd moved all of our joint assets and made a series of strategic transactions. First, I paid off the mortgage on our house in full, then immediately listed it for sale with our realtor who'd agreed to handle the entire transaction remotely. Second, I liquidated Rachel's business assets, her editing equipment, camera gear, the ring lights and tripods, and professional tools that had built her influencer empire. Everything sold to a used equipment dealer who paid in cash and asked no questions. Third, I closed all of our joint credit accounts and removed Rachel as an authorized user on all of my personal accounts. Within 6 hours, Rachel had gone from successful influencer with multiple revenue streams to unemployed person with no assets, no income, and no way to get home. But the beautiful part was yet to come. At 3 p.m., I walked into the resort's restaurant and took a table directly across from where Rachel and Felix were having what appeared to be an extremely tense conversation. Felix saw me first. His face went white, and he grabbed Rachel's arm to get her attention. She turned, saw me, and for a moment her expression was pure confusion. The maintenance worker from the airplane, the background figure she'd walked past without noticing. Then recognition dawned, followed immediately by fear. I raised my hand and gave her a small wave. "Happy birthday, Rachel." The look on Rachel's face when she realized I'd been there all along was worth every sleepless hour I'd spent planning her destruction. She stood up so fast her chair fell backward, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to speak but couldn't find words. Felix grabbed her arm, whispering something urgent in her ear, but his eyes never left mine. I stayed seated, cutting into my lunch with deliberate calm. Let them panic. Let them wonder how much I knew, how long I'd been watching, what I was planning to do next. They didn't have to wonder long. Rachel's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She looked at the screen and her face went even paler. "It's my manager," she said to Felix, loud enough for me to hear. "I have to take this." She answered the call and walked toward the restaurant's entrance, but her voice carried back to where I was sitting. "What do you mean terminated?" I'm in Bali on a wellness retreat, just like we discussed. What photos? What are you talking about? I watched her face crumble as her manager explained that her 3 biggest sponsors had canceled their contracts and were demanding repayment of advance fees. That photographic evidence had been provided proving she'd lied about her location. That legal action was being considered. Felix was on his own phone now, speaking in low, frantic tones to someone who was clearly delivering equally bad news. The investors are pulling out. How did they find out? Someone recorded the presentations. I finished my lunch while they spiraled into chaos 20 feet away from me. When the waiter brought the check, I made sure to pay in cash and leave a generous tip. No need to be rude to service industry workers just because I was destroying someone's life. Rachel ended her call and walked back to the table, tears streaming down her perfectly contoured cheeks. "Everything's ruined," she said to Felix. "All of my partnerships are canceled. They're saying I committed fraud. They want their money back." "We need to leave," Felix said, "right now, before this gets any worse." That's when I stood up and walked over to their table. "I wouldn't recommend trying to leave just yet," I said conversationally. "The charter flight you took here has been grounded for maintenance issues. Could take days to resolve." Rachel stared at me with growing horror. How are you here?" "I work on aircraft," I said simply. "Sometimes I fly along to monitor performance, standard procedure." Felix finally found his voice. "You're her husband." "I am indeed. Grayson Hale. We haven't been formally introduced." I extended my hand toward him with mock politeness. He didn't take it. "What do you want?" Rachel whispered. "I want to understand something," I said, pulling out the empty chair at their table and sitting down uninvited. "Help me understand how a marriage works when one person steals the other person's money to fund a criminal enterprise with her boyfriend." "It's not what you think," Rachel started. "It's exactly what I think," I interrupted. "You've been planning this for months, moving our money into shell companies, lying about your location, building a business designed to defraud investors. The only thing I couldn't figure out was whether you actually believed Felix's BS or if you knew it was a scam from the beginning." I pulled out my phone and played a 10-second clip from yesterday's investor presentation. Felix's voice, clear and unmistakable, discussing fake testimonials and strategies for collecting deposits before completing construction. "Turns out you knew," I continued. "You helped design it?" Felix was looking around the restaurant like he was planning to run. I hoped he would try. I was looking forward to watching him explain to Barbados police why he was fleeing the scene of a fraud investigation. "Gray, listen to me," Rachel said, reaching across the table toward my hand. "You don't understand. This isn't about us. This is about something bigger. An opportunity to build something meaningful. Meaningful like lying to your followers about being in Bali? That was just marketing. Meaningful like stealing from investors? We're providing value. Meaningful like destroying our marriage, so you could run away with a con artist?" She had no answer for that one. I looked at Felix, who was still scanning the restaurant exits like a trapped animal. "You picked the wrong mark," I told him. "Rachel's not some naive influencer you can manipulate and abandon. She's my wife. And I don't let people steal from my family." "Your family?" Rachel laughed, but it sounded forced. "Gray, when was the last time we actually talked? Really talked? When was the last time you showed any interest in my dreams, my goals, my growth as a person? When was the last time your dreams didn't involve spending my money on other men?" That hit home. Rachel's face flushed red. "Our money," she said. "It's our money. Was our money," I corrected. "Now it's my money, all of it. Every account, every asset, everything we built together. I moved it this morning." Felix finally spoke up. "You can't do that." "Actually, I can. Joint accounts, joint assets, community property laws. As long as I'm legally married to Rachel, I have every right to protect our assets from fraudulent schemes." "You son of a witch," Rachel said, and for the first time since I'd known her, her social media polish cracked completely. "You can't just steal everything we've worked for. Watch me." I stood up and pulled out a manila envelope I'd been carrying in my jacket. "Divorce papers," I said, placing it on the table. "I filed them this morning. Irreconcilable differences, with documentation of your infidelity and financial fraud as supporting evidence. You can contest it if you want, but given the evidence I've collected, I wouldn't recommend it." Rachel opened the envelope with shaking hands. "The papers were real," I'd found a Barbados attorney who specialized in international divorce proceedings and paid him to prepare everything properly. The house is being sold, I continued. Your business equipment has been liquidated. Your social media accounts have been transferred to my control as co-owner of the business assets used to build them. Your sponsorship contracts have been terminated due to breach of ethical standards. And the police are investigating your little investment scheme here. Felix had gone completely white. The police? The Royal Barbados Police Force takes fraud very seriously, especially fraud targeting tourists. I'm sure they'll want to interview both of you before you leave the island. You're insane, Rachel said, but her voice was shaking. You can't just destroy someone's entire life because you're jealous. I'm not destroying your life, I said calmly. I'm just stopping you from destroying other people's lives. The lies, the fraud, the theft. That was your choice. I'm just making sure there are consequences. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a printed photograph. Rachel and Felix kissing on the beach that morning, captured with my telephoto lens. This is going to the judge handling our divorce, I said, along with about 50 other photos documenting your relationship and business activities. Rachel grabbed the photo and tore it in half. There are hundreds more, I said, along with audio recordings, financial records, and sworn statements from 3 investors who almost gave you their money based on fraudulent representations. Felix finally lost his composure completely. You psychotic fool, he snarled, jumping up from his chair. You followed your wife on vacation to spy on her? What kind of sick... I stayed seated but looked directly into his eyes. The kind who doesn't let con artists steal from his family, I said quietly. The kind who does thorough research before making important decisions. The kind who understands that actions have consequences. Felix took a step toward me, and I could see him calculating whether to try something physical. I hoped he would. 5 years of aircraft maintenance work had kept me in better shape than his gym-sculpted appearance suggested he was in. Sit down, Felix, I said, before you do something that gets you arrested for attack on top of fraud. He sat down. I turned back to Rachel, who was staring at the torn photograph pieces like she couldn't believe what was happening. I loved you, I said, and for the first time since this started, I felt the emotion crack through my controlled exterior. For 6 years, I worked 12-hour days so you could chase your dreams. I supported every crazy scheme, every business pivot, every time you needed space to find yourself. I never asked for anything except honesty. Tears were running down her face now, but I couldn't tell if they were from guilt or just frustration at being caught. And you repaid that love by stealing from me, lying to me, and planning to abandon me for a criminal who's probably done this same routine with a dozen other women. I stood up and dropped a $20 bill on the table. Lunch is on me, I said. Consider it a divorce present. I was almost to the restaurant exit when Rachel called after me. Great, wait, please, we can work this out. We can fix this. I stopped and turned back. No, I said, we can't. You made your choice. You chose lies over truth, crime over honesty, Felix over me. Those choices have consequences. Where are you going? She asked desperately. Home, I said. To start over. With people who don't lie to me. And I walked out, leaving my wife and her boyfriend to face the consequences of what they'd built together. I drove straight to the airport and booked a commercial flight back to the States. No more charter flights, no more surveillance, no more carefully orchestrated revenge. Just a simple economy ticket on a plane full of tourists heading home from their vacations. But as I sat in the departure lounge, I realized I wasn't quite finished. My phone had been buzzing constantly for the past 2 hours. Text messages from Rachel, voicemails from Felix, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored all of them and focused on the final pieces of my plan. First, I called my attorney back home and confirmed that the divorce papers had been properly filed and served. Rachel would have 30 days to respond, but given the evidence I'd provided, any contest would be futile and expensive. Second, I called the realtor handling our house sale. 3 showings already scheduled, and 1 potential buyer expressing serious interest. The house would probably sell within 2 weeks, which was faster than I'd expected. Third, I logged into Rachel's social media accounts one last time. I wasn't going to post anything malicious or obviously vindictive. Instead, I scheduled a single simple message that would go live at midnight Eastern Time. After much reflection, I've decided to step away from social media and influencer work to focus on personal growth and accountability. I want to apologize to anyone who felt misled by my recent content, and I encourage my followers to be skeptical of wellness industry marketing that seems too good to be true. Thank you for your support over the years. Then I permanently deleted the accounts. 6 years of carefully curated content, hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of likes and comments and shares, all gone in a single click. Rachel would wake up tomorrow with no social media presence, no business, no income, no assets, and no way home. My flight boarded at 6 p.m. As we taxied toward the runway, I looked out the window at the beautiful tropical paradise that had become the graveyard of my marriage. I felt empty, but not sad. More like the feeling after finishing a complicated repair job. Tired, satisfied, ready to move on to the next project. My phone buzzed with one final text message from Rachel. Please don't do this. I made mistakes, but we can fix everything. I love you. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. The plane lifted off just as the sun was setting, painting the Caribbean sky in shades of orange and pink that would have made perfect Instagram content. But there was nobody left to post it. I landed in Charlotte at 11:47 p.m. and drove home through empty highways, past billboards and strip malls and all the mundane familiarity of real life after 3 days in paradise. Our house looked smaller than I remembered, like it had shrunk while I was gone. I walked through rooms that still smelled like Rachel's perfume, past pictures of our wedding and vacations and all the moments when I'd believed we were building something together. The realtor had left a note on the kitchen counter. The interested buyer wanted to make an offer first thing Monday morning. They were paying cash, which meant we could close within 2 weeks if everything went smoothly. Everything would go smoothly. I was very good at making sure things went smoothly. I spent Sunday packing. Not everything, just the things that mattered to me. Tools, books, a few pieces of furniture that had belonged to my father. Everything else could be sold with the house or donated to charity. Rachel's things stayed exactly where she'd left them. Her clothes in the closet, her yoga mats in the living room, her collection of wellness books and organic supplements, and all the props she'd used to build her authentic lifestyle brand. Let her figure out what to do with them when she got back. If she got back. Monday morning brought the house offer, exactly as expected. Full asking price, cash sale, 30-day closing. I accepted immediately. Monday afternoon brought a phone call from a detective with the Royal Barbados Police Force. Mr. Hale? This is Detective Williams calling about the fraud investigation involving your wife and Felix Durand. How can I help you? We have both individuals in custody pending charges of investor fraud and unlicensed business operations. Mr. Durand is also being held on immigration violations. Apparently his visa status wasn't as straightforward as he claimed. I felt a flash of satisfaction. What happens now? The investigation will take several weeks. They'll remain in custody until trial unless they can post bail, which seems unlikely given their current financial situation. Current financial situation. Right. Will you need me to testify? Probably not. The evidence you provided was quite comprehensive. We have everything we need to proceed. After I hung up, I realized I felt nothing about Rachel being in jail. No guilt, no satisfaction, no regret. Just the same empty completion I'd felt on the airplane. She'd made her choices. These were the consequences. I went to work Tuesday morning like nothing had happened. Jenkins asked how my family emergency had gone, and I told him everything was resolved. He didn't ask for details, and I didn't offer any. The familiar routine of aircraft maintenance felt good after 3 days of emotional manipulation and calculated revenge. Clear problems with clear solutions. Parts that either worked or didn't work. Systems that could be trusted to behave predictably. At lunch, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Grayson Hale? Speaking. This is Jennifer Klein from Channel 7 News. We're working on a story about wellness industry fraud, and we understand you were involved in exposing a significant scheme in Barbados? I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Mr. Hale, I'm sorry we were disconnected. This is a story that could help protect other people from similar fraud. I hung up again and blocked the number. Over the next week, I blocked 17 different reporters, 3 documentary filmmakers, and someone claiming to represent a true crime podcast. I had no intention of becoming a public figure in this story. Rachel and Felix had chosen to live their lives for public consumption. They could face the public consequences alone. Friday afternoon, I got a collect call from Barbados. Gray? Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. Rachel's voice sounded hollow, exhausted. Jail was apparently not agreeing with her. What do you want? I asked. I need you to wire money for bail, $30,000. I know you have it. No. Gray, please, I'm in a foreign jail. The conditions here are... It's not like American prisons. I need to get out of here. Then you should have thought about that before committing fraud in a foreign country. This is insane. You're letting your wife rot in jail because you're jealous that I found someone who understands my potential. I'm letting my soon-to-be ex-wife face the consequences of her criminal actions. There was a long pause. When Rachel spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. I made mistakes. I know that, but we were married, Gray. That has to count for something. It counted for 6 years, I said. Right up until you decided to steal from me and run away with a con artist? It wasn't stealing. It was our money, which you spent on a criminal enterprise without telling me. Another pause. What if I testified against Felix? What if I cooperated with the investigation and told them he manipulated me into this whole thing? Did he manipulate you? Silence. Because I have recordings of you designing the fake testimonials, Rachel. I have emails showing you planned the timeline for collecting investor deposits. I have photographs of you actively participating in fraudulent presentations. You've been spying on me for months. I've been documenting your crimes for 3 days. I need that money, Gray. If you ever loved me, I did love you. That's why this hurts so much. That's why I can't help you anymore. I hung up and blocked the jail's phone number. Saturday morning, the house sold. Clean, simple, final. Sunday, I signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment near the airport. Furnished, month to month, the kind of place where you could disappear completely if you needed to start over. Sunday evening, I got one last message from Rachel. Not a phone call this time. Somehow she gotten access to email. Gray, Felix is blaming everything on me. He's saying I was the mastermind, that I manipulated him into the fraud scheme. His lawyer thinks they can get him a plea deal if he cooperates against me. I could be facing 20 years in prison. I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. But please don't let your anger destroy my entire life. I made mistakes, but I don't deserve this. Please. Rachel. I read the email twice, then forwarded it to my divorce attorney with a note asking him to add it to the evidence file. Then I deleted it. Monday morning, I went to work early and stayed late. Tuesday was the same. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the comforting routine of honest work, predictable problems, mechanical solutions that actually worked. I was rebuilding my life one day at a time, and it felt good. I'd forgotten what it felt like to trust the people around me. 3 weeks after returning from Barbados, I was starting to believe I might actually be free. The house sale had closed without complications. My divorce attorney confirmed that Rachel's criminal charges would make the proceedings straightforward. No judge was going to award assets to someone facing fraud charges in federal court. The news coverage of the wellness influencer fraud ring had died down after the initial burst of interest. Rachel and Felix had become just another story about social media deception, quickly replaced by newer scandals and fresher outrage. I was living quietly in my furnished apartment, working my regular shifts at the airport, slowly figuring out what came next. Then Felix got out of jail. I learned about it from Detective Williams, who called to update me on the case status. Durand posted bail yesterday, he said. $250,000. Apparently his family in Miami came through with the money. What about Rachel? Still in custody. No family members able or willing to post her bail. After I hung up, I realized I should probably feel something about this news. Worry, maybe, or satisfaction, or at least curiosity about what Felix would do next. Instead, I felt the same emotional numbness that had been my constant companion since returning home. I went to work, performed routine maintenance on a citation business jet, ate lunch alone in the break room, and tried not to think about Felix Durand walking free while my wife sat in a Barbados jail cell. But Felix wasn't done with me. He showed up at the airport Thursday evening just as I was finishing my shift. I walked out of the employee entrance and found him leaning against my truck, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place in the maintenance parking area. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." I tried to walk past him to my driver's door, but he stepped in front of me. "You destroyed everything," he said. "My business, my reputation, my freedom. Do you understand what you've done? I understand that you're a criminal who got caught. I'm a businessman who was building something legitimate until you decided to play private investigator." I looked at him more closely. The polish was gone. His perfectly styled hair was messy, his expensive clothes wrinkled, his confident smile replaced by the desperate expression of someone who'd run out of options. "The retreat was going to be real," he continued. "We had investors lined up, construction contracts ready, everything planned out professionally. Your wife understood the vision. My wife understood she was participating in fraud. She understood she was investing in the future instead of settling for a maintenance worker's salary. That was supposed to hurt, I think. The casual dismissal of my work, my worth, my contribution to the marriage. 6 months ago, it would have hurt. Now it just confirmed that I'd made the right choice. What do you want, Felix? I want you to fix this." "Fix what?" "Call the prosecutor. Tell them you made a mistake. Tell them you misunderstood what you saw, that you jumped to conclusions because you were jealous." I almost laughed. "Are you insane? Rachel is facing 20 years in prison because of your vindictive little revenge scheme. She doesn't deserve that. She doesn't deserve the consequences of committing fraud. She deserves a chance to rebuild her life. She made mistakes, but she was following my lead. I convinced her to take risks she wouldn't have taken on her own." Now I did laugh. "You're throwing her under the bus. Just like you planned to do from the beginning." Felix's composure cracked completely. "You smug son of a witch," he snarled. "You think you're so righteous, destroying people's lives because your feelings got hurt. You have no idea what you've cost me. I cost you exactly what you tried to steal. I was building something, creating value, providing experiences that people wanted. That's called entrepreneurship, not fraud. Creating fake businesses to steal investor money is called fraud. Prove it was fake. Prove we weren't going to build everything we promised." I pulled out my phone and played one of the audio recordings I'd made. Felix's voice, clear and unmistakable, discussing strategies for collecting deposits before completing construction and plans for disappearing if investors became suspicious. His face went white. "You can't use that." "That was recorded illegally. I was performing legitimate maintenance monitoring on an aircraft I'm licensed to service. Everything I recorded was in public spaces or areas where I had authorized access." Felix stared at me with pure hatred. "You planned this whole thing. You knew exactly what you were doing from the moment you saw that flight manifest. I planned to discover the truth about what my wife was doing with our money. Everything else was just following the evidence. Evidence you manipulated and edited to make us look guilty. Evidence you created by committing crimes." Felix looked around the empty parking lot like he was considering his options. For a moment, I thought he might try to attack me physically. I was ready for that possibility. Instead, he did something worse. He smiled. "You know what the really funny part is?" he said. "Rachel actually loved you. Right up until the end, she kept talking about how she could make this work, how she could have both the business opportunity and her marriage." I said nothing. "She never wanted to leave you permanently. The plan was to get the business established, then bring you in as a partner. She thought you'd be proud of her for taking initiative, for building something bigger than your little suburban life. By lying to me and stealing our money. By taking risks you were too scared to take yourself. She knew you'd never support the business if she told you about it up front. You would have found reasons why it wouldn't work, why it was too dangerous, why she should be satisfied with what she already had." Felix stepped closer, and I could see he was enjoying this. "She was protecting you from your own limitations," he continued. "And you repaid her by destroying everything she worked for. She worked for fraud. She worked for a dream that was bigger than being married to a mechanic in North Carolina. That should have hurt. Maybe 6 months ago, it would have. But standing in that parking lot, listening to a con artist try to manipulate me one last time, I felt nothing but pity. "Are we done here?" I asked. Felix studied my face, looking for any crack in my composure. "She's going to prison because of you," he said finally. 20 years of her life, Gone because you couldn't handle being married to someone with ambition. She's going to prison because she committed crimes. She committed crimes because you drove her to them. Because you were such a small, petty, controlling husband that she had to lie to you about her dreams. I walked around him to my truck and opened the driver's door. Felix. He turned. Don't come to my workplace again. Don't call me, don't contact me. Don't try to manipulate me into fixing the consequences of your crimes. You made your choices. Rachel made her choices. Live with them. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I watched him shrink to a distant figure, then disappear entirely as I turned onto the main road. I never saw him again. But I wasn't done hearing about him. 3 days after confronting Felix in the airport parking lot, I got a 6:23 a.m. call from Detective Williams in Barbados. Felix Durand was found dead in his hotel room this morning. Apparent self-destruction. He left a note. It hit like a punch. Felix had confessed to the fraud and claimed Rachel had been manipulated. That's not true, I said. Williams agreed, but explained that with Felix dead, Rachel's lawyer would argue she was coerced. She'll likely be released within the week. I sat on the edge of my bed stunned. Felix, criminal manipulator, was dead. I felt nothing. 3 days later, Williams confirmed it. Rachel was getting out with time served, probation, and community service. She'd be deported back to the U.S., free but ruined. No marriage, no business, no career, just wreckage. She called from the airport. "I'm back," she said, voice small. "I heard about Felix. He said he manipulated me," she said. "But no, he didn't. I knew what I was doing. I chose it." Honesty, finally. She asked to stay with me. "No, please, I have nowhere. That's not my problem anymore," Rachel broke down. "Everything's gone. I have nothing left. You have what you chose. What now? Start over. Make better choices. Who'll hire someone with a fraud conviction? You're smart. You'll figure it out." The wellness industry was everything to me. And it was built on authenticity. You gave that up. Are you really going to let me be homeless? I'm letting you face the consequences like you left me to. Rachel's voice turned bitter. You're enjoying this. I'm not. Then help me. No. I didn't create the fallout. I just ensured you couldn't dodge it. You followed me to another country to find out if my wife was stealing and cheating. She was. Felix is dead because of you. No. He chose self-destruction to avoid accountability. She cried harder. I loved you. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. You lied, stole, left me. It was for us. No, it was for you. I was only your funding. What happens now? You rebuild your life alone. Can I call you for help? No. Gray. Goodbye, Rachel. I hung up, sat alone, wondering why doing the right thing felt like losing everything.